Welcome, everyone, to the Salt Lake Expositor, where the three channels of Momo Nomo, Latter Daily Digest, and Midlife Revolution join together to shine a light of truth on the LDS Church. We're trying to see what we can do. So, Randy and Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's
Hey
always,
there, Gene.
we're always tickled to be here together fighting LDS bullshit.
It's good to be with you guys. Happy Sunday.
Thank you.
So let's see. There's a lot of stories. We'll say there probably could be 100 top stories, depending on your one's viewpoint. We think that the number one story is going to be President Nelson passing.
Yes.
And remembering the life of President Nelson. What do you remember about the life of President Nelson, Megan?
I think that the thing that sticks out the most to me is his constant repetition of a story that was just completely fabricated, or at the very least widely exaggerated, where he was on an airplane that lost an engine and they almost crashed, and it turned out that they were never actually in any real danger.
The death spiral.
Yes, the death spiral.
I think it's possible Randy and I chat with some guy who's been on some of the other channels, and just that story should be out every year, I think, and he says he has some new information too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Look for that in January. And let's see. I remember that he woke up at 3 a.m. sometimes and had to kick Wendy out of the bed so that he could receive revelation and write it down.
Yeah, I remember Wendy talking about that and how he had these, yellow notepads that he would just write and write and write and write on. And yeah, she would have to leave the room sometimes in the middle of the night, which, she was happy to do because he was getting revelation from God. And yet, where are these revelations? He never published any of them.
Well, Megan, they're in the yellow notebook still. And can you imagine how that would keep you awake if God was continually in your bedroom with that brightness?
Yeah, yeah, he must not have gotten very much sleep.
The other thing I remember is as I was on my way of finding the new truth about the Mormon Church, I came across some of the videos where President Nelson was talking to kids. I think it was just before COVID, and he was talking to children back east near the historic sites. They were promoting the historic sites. And Nelson said, here's the hat that Joseph Smith had, and he would put a rock in, and he would put his head in, and he almost dipped in all the way. But he couldn't quite do it.
Couldn't bring himself to go all the way, which is typical for a Mormon man. Hey!
Kabam!
Then he compared it to a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if Joseph Smith said, hey, Siri, or anything like that, or hey, okay, Google, in order to start the process going. That would have been prophetic.
You can do the same thing now with chatgpt. Dear chatgpt, please give me a revelation that I can publish to the Mormon people.
Yeah. The closest he came to having a cell phone was when he was in the Carthage jail.
Oh, why do you say that, Randy?
Well, he didn't have a phone, but he had a cell for sure.
Oh, I like that one. That's a good
See
one.
what I did there? Kind of a Gene thing.
I do. I got that. Yes, I got that reference. I enjoyed it.
He did make a lot of changes.
I think the other thing I'll remember about President Rusty Nelson is his announcing of dozens and dozens of temples that will never be built.
Yes, he had steeple envy, I think.
He did. I believe he did. I believe that he and Gordon Hinckley must have had quite a robust rivalry that went on, because as evidenced by a lot of President Nelson's decisions and policy adjustments. He definitely was trying to undo and outdo the work of Gordon Hinckley.
And he certainly will go down in history as the man that uttered the silly sentence that the word Mormon is a victory for Satan.
A major
Jesus
victory for
Christ's name
Satan.
out. Yeah. There's a lot of revelations probably scribbled down in that yellow notebook that make some sense, but this Mormon thing, can't get my head around it.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, especially since for like 170 years, we were trying to make Mormon cool so that we could, was it sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me. So that
Close.
so that wouldn't hurt to be called Mormon.
That's right. There was even a song called I'm a Mormon Boy, and I seem to remember a recording of President Benson singing it awkwardly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how about that? And Gene, didn't you tell us to put our money on Mormon again, that you think the Mormon is coming back?
Mormon's coming back.
But guys,
the Lord does not need your money.
That's right.
Well, I went ahead and put the memo out to the world based on your belief, Gene, that the term Mormon is indeed coming back. And I went ahead and let the members know that they can go ahead and start using it again.
Except for the fact that the churches and at the same time, this was proof that they're going to bring Mormon back, is because they've been suing people, podcasters that have Mormon in their name, except for the Salt Lake Tribune, where they have Mormon land. They haven't been served notice yet, I don't think.
Oh, really?
The
That's
church
interesting.
is trying to defend the word Mormon, saying we own the copyright for it. So you wouldn't really want to defend and try to reestablish a copyright for something. So I'm going to try to get the interest in the church. I'm going to start a new channel just called Mormon. See if I can get sued.
I wonder what our live audience thinks about the Mormon being banned.
Yeah, it's so interesting. They banned the word Mormon, and now they're going after these podcasters saying you can't use that. That's our word. And I agree with the people who say, the renewal for the copyright is coming up next year. They have to prove that they're using it, but they've gotten rid of it in so many different locations. The only place they're really still using it is the Book of Mormon. But as far as I know, they haven't sued the Book of Mormon musical over the title of their show.
Makes you wonder if they secretly funded it.
It does make you wonder if they secretly funded it. We know that they took out ads in the playbill. The ad showed the Book of Mormon that says, now you've seen the musical, now read the real book, and all of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Trace on the case. I like this. So the new channel is going to be Mormon. And yes, Peter Higgs, if you stand in front of the mirror and say it 3 times, Joseph Smith will appear and give you a rock.
Yeah. The rock of my salvation, for sure.
That's right. Well, as long as we're talking about the death of a prominent Mormon official, we should probably talk about a death we haven't mentioned yet, which is the death of Jeffrey R. Holland.
Yep. He
just a couple of days ago.
I was actually going to tell my sister a few days ago, before he died, that he was going to die this week, because the church didn't tell the members when he was put into the hospital with, serious complications. I read about it, and I was going to tell my sister, you know what, we're going to lose Elder Holland pretty quick. but I didn't.
Yeah.
And sure as heck, he woke up dead, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Can you really wake up dead?
Well, it depends on your afterlife belief, I guess.
That's
That
right.
would really scare the nurses, I think.
You know, what I always find interesting to contemplate is that now Jeffrey R. Holland is the newest ex-Mormon.
Ah, I like that. Wow.
Yes, and the big question is, will Holland get a 21 musket salute?
Yeah, if we're going to talk about things that we remember Jeffrey Holland for, the first thing that comes to mind is that speech that he gave at BYU that called for musket fire when defending the family proclamation, which he was specifically speaking about gay marriage and LGBTQ rights. And a lot of people took offense at that because there had just been a shooting. You know, it was just incredibly insensitive of him to mention actual gunfire in defending families against the scary LGBTQ community that is destroying everything we hold dear.
Right. And causing young people to turn gay as well.
Right.
And he mentioned that the prior year, he said that the valedictorian had commandeered the pulpit at BYU to come out as gay or something like that. And the guy that did it, and I can't remember his name, but it'll come to us. So maybe somebody can say it in the chat. The young student, he had submitted his talk to all the different organizations that you need to when you're giving a speech in front of thousands during a BYU graduation. And, you know, because of that, I found a rainbow Y, a BYU looking Y, just like it's on the mountain. And that was my Facebook portrait for like a year. I had that on my.
Was it the actual Y or like a look-alike?
So it was like a look-alike. It was just like you would see the Y, and I don't know where it is. Somebody actually wanted to make a T-shirt with it, and I just got it from somebody else. It just showed up, you know, on my news feed somewhere. But you're able to, you know, cut and paste things or make things, you know, put them on your wall and different things. And so I didn't know where it came from.
Well, they used to allow LGBTQ students to go up and light the Y in rainbow colors during Pride Week. And then they, of course, stopped doing that because it turns out that's, a victory for Satan too. Gay valedictorians are a victory for Satan.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sup, sinner? Hellfire Agency, good to see you. So yeah, the other thing that I remember President Holland for, or Elder Holland, whatever you want to call him, Jeff Holland. I remember when he did a talk that spoke specifically about mental illness and major depressive disorder. And I remember so many people being so grateful and excited that he talked about mental health in general conference. And at the time, I was with that group of people who was applauding him for, thank you for validating us. Thank you for making it real. You know, thank you for acknowledging that major depressive disorder is real and it's not just, you know, laziness or a lack of faith or whatever. But when I think about that over, you know, the broad history of the church and him being the only person who has ever really addressed that as an issue, and it didn't happen until like 2016, I think it's actually a major failure on the rest of the leadership of the church that it took that long to talk about mental health in relation to spirituality, because previously we were always fed this idea that if we were suffering from depression, it was our fault for not being faithful enough, not praying hard enough, not reading our scriptures and all of that. And that's been a pervasive sort of narrative in the church for a long time. And the leadership of the church often discourages members from getting help. with their mental health, because again, they say you should just have more faith. And so, yeah, Elder Holland being the first person to start the mental health conversation is a good thing and a bad thing, just because it was good that he did it. It was bad that it took that long. And also, I guess the third thing is it's bad that it hasn't really been talked about much since.
When Holland was the president of BYU, a friend of mine was in either student government or some sort of student services, and like almost like they were assistants to the president at BYU or something like that. And he was asked to write something about some gospel topic, let's say, not an essay, but anyway. And then like a few weeks later, he heard part of what he wrote in a talk that Elder Holland gave at conference. So that was the first time I'd heard that talks at conference could be written by someone other than those speaking the very words that they are uttering. And so since then, I've heard lots of information about writing and giving a talk. And we all thought that it was the Holy Ghost moving them to talk. And it was really a big plan every year. It's each conference is a big plan. Who knows if they send out, topics for people to pick from or whatever it is, themes, whatever it is, but it's way more than just a roll of the dice, what they talk about.
Well, I think I remember Susan's husband talking about this at one point, saying that, they all get together, they receive an assignment to speak in conference, and then they all get together and sort of share maybe what their topic is. And he said he was always amazed at how there was no overlap and no two people picked the same topic because it's all inspired. But we know that that's likely not true. And not only that, but they have to submit their talk in advance. And if it doesn't pass muster, they have to change it. And sometimes the talks have even been changed after conference and re-recorded in a couple of different instances so that problematic or troubling passages of the talk would be whitewashed.
Yeah, we're not giving him any bereavement time, but we're not also trying to be too angry at him. I know he's famous for the Wrong Roads speech, where he said that he was told his son that God let them go on the wrong road so that when they finally had to come back and take the right road, that they would be sure that they were going on the right road. Well, that's what would happen if you just took the wrong road without praying. So,
so literally God led them astray.
Another quote that that he's rather known for is, "Be kind regarding human frailty, your own as well as that of others." I don't think that he put this into practice, especially with the LGBTQ comments. But I just kind of think that's a little hypocritical.
Yep, 100%.
Randy, do you have a story you're ready to present to the stage and talk about?
Actually, I do. I don't really have any graphics for it because I don't feel like they need to be seen again. But one of the most impactful and tragic things that happened in the LDS Church in 2025 was the attack in Michigan, where gentleman, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, but some dude drives this big old Trump-looking pickup truck through the wall of the chapel and jumps out and starts shooting and igniting fires, injuring, was it 8 injured and 4 killed? Maybe it was more than 8. I know that they had a follow-up on that, but what a horrible, I don't care if they did it to the most notorious, horrible gang in the land. to drive a truck in a church service through the wall and start shooting kids and whoever he can hit is just evil. It's just evil. It's just wrong. And I would have thought that this horrible tragedy would have woken up the church to get better security for the chapels. As of yet, there's no additional security put on. And how ridiculous is that they don't take measures with all their billions and billions and billions of dollars to install some security measures in each one of the chapels, and maybe, guess what? Maybe have a little class on what to do in the event that someone comes in and starts assaulting people.
So I actually heard that there was some wards mentioning in ex-Mormon Reddit or something that the fifth Sunday they talked for 20 minutes about what to do for an active shooter or evacuations and different things like that. But yeah, not really a lot of protection there.
They didn't install any security though. No new security measures. Other churches did. They took the hint. Other churches said, "Oh, look what happened to the Mormons. Let's make sure that doesn't happen to us. Let's get some better security in the parking lot. Let's get a security guard." I don't know if anyone has put up the standards that I suggested they put up. You know, the big target balls, or like Megan suggested, the angel Moroni's, whatever you want to put around the chapel that's going to stop a vehicle near the entrances.
Yeah, I think, in the broader discussion about this case, which I covered extensively, there was a lot of pushback about, well, you can't prepare for every eventuality. And while that's true, the church could consult with law enforcement that would help them protect against the most plausible eventualities. They could do really basic things. For example, the Lutheran church that I sometimes play the piano at, they have a little keypad at every single door that is an entrance into the church. And during worship times, they have someone standing there at the door to let people in. A lot of these churches also have bulletproof glass in their lobbies. There are so many simple things they could do, and they certainly have the funds to carry it out. But, kind of as Tim says, they won't protect children. So why would they try to protect members? If it costs money or takes effort, they're just not going to do it because the bottom line is they don't care. They really don't care.
Well, they put as much thought and worry into that as they do into the harm to so many kids, because they absolutely refuse to do background checks and vet the people that are going to be working with the kids. Not to get onto that subject, but I'm just saying that's the same kind of care that they offer, is whatever's not going to make us liable, whatever we need to say, but don't ask us to spend any of our precious money, because Christ is coming and we need that money for the rainy day.
That's right, Randy.
Rainy day.
You can't have a gold standard unless you save all the gold in a vault somewhere for yourself.
Right. All the gold in California is in a bank in the middle of Beverly Hills in someone else's name.
And that was probably the biggest, let's say, Mormon related to the United States story, in my opinion. Now, there's a bigger story that was Utah related to the rest of the United States, and that was the Charlie Kirk shooting at the Utah Valley University.
Right.
And that, wasn't necessarily Mormon, except for a Mormon did it. And so that does, and it goes along with church violence in a way, political violence. And we condemn political and church violence. We condemn, most violence that is not defensive, no matter what. And so,
well, Megan, you kind of monitor these crime cases in the church. Do you know what the status is with the shooter of Charlie Kirk and what's going on? Because it's like it just dropped out of the news.
Yeah, so they have well, by they, let me clarify. The prosecution and the defense team both agreed that they did not want cameras in the courtroom for any of these hearings or proceedings. And I can't help but wonder if that is, influenced by a desire to keep the proceedings, as private as possible, to keep any information negative about the church from coming up. That I think the news is being downplayed for a reason. But the young man who allegedly did the shooting has been arraigned. They've had a couple of hearings on his case. He's been assigned counsel. So the case is progressing. I believe right now they're in the discovery and evidence sharing phase of everything. So it's going to take a while before we get to a place where there's any kind of progress.
Thank you.
I'll bring another news article that happened the last, I think, month or so. A Dublin man was arrested in Utah on federal child exploitation charges. And this notification by the Department of Justice, FBI, actually caused this story to actually have news value now. But for like a week or 10 days earlier, he had been arrested in Utah, and the only people that knew it were ex-Mormons.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you told a Mormon, they would say, oh, it's got to be some other Christofferson. It can't be anyone that's related to D. Todd at all.
Right.
And so, Megan, what do you have to say about this?
Well, this was definitely the highest profile SA case to come out this year, but it certainly is not the only one. Child SA is an ongoing problem in the LDS Church, and victims are coming forward all the time. The church has done, the LDS Church has done a really good job of trying to keep those cases out of the courts and away from the discovery phase, because that's what they fear more than anything else, because they don't want to have to give up their what they consider protected information about individuals, and they also don't want to be found complicit. There's an argument to be made that they could be criminally complicit in protecting these offenders. And so they try to claim clergy penitent privilege and say that, the bishops and the stake presidents are not obligated to, make a report to law enforcement because it's considered a religious confession. So that's something that I intend to really actively pursue, not only the stories on, but also I really want to advocate for making church clergy, all church volunteers, anybody who works with children, to be mandated reporters and to have background checks. And right now that's just not the case. That's not what's happening. And again, the church could choose to do those things to protect kids, but they will not do it. Ostensibly because it would cost a lot of money, it would be a lot of overhaul. And, it's just, they don't want to put the effort forth.
So true. So sad.
And I'm going to say, and I'll try to say it as much as I can, what did D. Todd Christofferson know, and when did he know it? If he had known information from years ago, more people could have been protected. If he had known that even his brother could engage in this type of behavior, as a leader of the church, he could have installed some of the things that Megan was just talking about. He could have, enhanced, what the church does, and enhanced, instead of covering their own asses all the time by calling the lawyers, they could actually have a helpline, a hotline that would give help and render aid and assistance to people who have been subjected to, atrocities. And so that hopefully the Department of Justice, Megan has told me that they have leeway. They can ask for lots of information that other, what do you call them, plaintiffs or prosecutors can do.
Yeah, law enforcement. Yeah, when it becomes a federal case, and it is going to be for this Christofferson case because it involves multiple states. Once it becomes a federal case, they can get a lot more information than people can if it's just a local case. And so that's kind of the hope, I think, of everybody following this case, is that a lot more information will come out. And as far as, D. Todd Christofferson having knowledge of this or being involved in any kind of a cover-up, of course, we don't have, concrete proof of that happening. However, the church does have a committee called the Strengthening the Church Members Committee, and it's actively involved in monitoring the activities, not only of former church members, but of current church members on social media. And I would be willing to wager that part of their mission is also to monitor the activity of those who are in high church leadership positions, and to monitor their families for any potential scandal or embarrassment. And what I find really interesting is that one of our other top news stories, the lowering of the missionary age universally to the age of 18, came out right when Wade Christofferson was being arrested. And so that's what the members were focused on, that big announcement. And they sort of missed the little byline down there that an apostle's brother had been arrested on these really horrific charges.
Well, I don't think the church went out of their way to make it known either, because everyone that I mentioned it to that was a member had no clue, including the 2 missionaries that came to my home the following week to sit down and see if I would be interested in their church.
Were you interested, Randy?
I am so interested that I actually do podcasts about it. Yes.
Oh, wow.
I mentioned that there was a severe lack of security. And I probably misspoke a little bit, because there's one thing that they're very secure on. And that is when someone enters the chapel, not that's going to shoot or light it on fire or kill people, but who is transgender. They assign watchdogs over them. They're not allowed to use the restroom without an escort. They are not allowed to be with kids. They're not allowed to have any sleepovers with where there's mixed sexes and several other rules that they have to live by. But they're obviously very concerned about that. But they don't mind putting pedos with, in as teachers and bishops and stake presidents and apostles' brothers. Let's not worry about them. Let's worry about the transgender man or woman who enters the chapel doors. Get a guard on him. Don't let him go to the bathroom in peace. Don't trust them for a minute. You keep your eyes on them. So in that light, I guess they are secure with a few subjects.
That makes me think that the church is actually shows that they're in the medieval world instead of the scientific world, because they still think that LGBTQ can wear off onto somebody, like it's a transferable disease, right? Instead of the fact that they are letting all the other crimes go by the wayside, and they're paying so much attention in this regard.
Exactly.
Yep. And whenever we talk about this type of story or this information about the trans policies in the LDS Church, I just want to point out that the real statistics prove that it is not transgender individuals who are the main offenders. It is white males.
Randy, it's you. I know it. I'm embarrassed for humankind, seriously. There's all kinds of crimes that I get. Actually, it's in my blood. My father was a professional criminal. in the mafia, but he didn't raise me. I was adopted away. It's in my blood. So I kind of became the other way around and became a police officer. But the crimes that I can't understand, I can't even begin to fathom, include the essay on a child. I search, trying in my brain to figure out what would cause a man to do that. And I come up empty every time because I don't understand what possible thrill, what possible like I've said in the past, I think that men grow up in the church so repressed and everything is wrong, everything is bad, and don't touch yourself, that they tend to fantasize and look for any kind of sexual thrill that's maybe a little deviant that the church probably doesn't specifically mention. And I'm embarrassed for humankind that we have so many predators out there in the world that are ready to hurt these kids. And it's the one thing that Christ emphasized, is to love the little children. The one thing that he really emphasized is love, 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 love. And that seems to be exactly what the church tries to extinguish, is the love part of everything.
Well, the church has enough money to buy lots and lots of millstones that will be hanging around their necks someday, according to scriptures.
Right.
Well, you know what the LDS Church does care a lot about is money.
Money.
And so one of the other top stories that we had from this year have to do with all of the tithing lawsuits that have been going around. And so, this was just in October that the plaintiffs in this tithing lawsuit that's been around really since 2019 are intending to appeal their case to the Supreme Court. So those of you who have been following the tithing lawsuits, you'll know there was a class action suit that was filed back in 2019 by Laura Gaddy. It was dismissed, and then they filed another complaint, this time as civil racketeering on a RICO claim. That claim was partially dismissed and partially granted, admitting that the church, used or misrepresented what it uses tithing dollars for. And, they talked about the church misrepresenting their history, and then they alleged the church committed fraud. And so the standing on that is that the circuit court wanted the case to be dismissed, but they're now going to appeal to the United States Supreme Court. But I also want to point out the Supreme Court only ever takes about 1% of all the cases that get appealed to them. So it'll be interesting to see if this is probably something that they don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, because it would create a lot of precedent for future lawsuits and whatnot, and a lot of controversy, but it'll be interesting to see. Randy, you're muted. Sorry.
I think of the billions and billions of dollars that are given to the church in the name of tithing, in the name of fundraising. And some of these corporations and companies that are, look at the hotel chain Marriott. How much tithing has to have come from them? How much tithing has to have come from all these huge corporations whose CEOs, owners, presidents are LDS? Can you imagine if a precedent was set? How many lawsuits there could be? And I think that could actually put a hurting on the church.
Yeah, if they, I know the class action suit was dismissed, but if they are successful on this RICO claim, then that's going to be a dog whistle to other attorneys to seek out clients, to sue based on this precedent. So it'll be interesting to see if any of that actually happens. If I had to put a wager on it, I would say probably the Supreme Court is not going to pick it up, but I hope they do.
And I hope I didn't interrupt you talking about the mission age, because that's another topic that is probably worth discussing. Why do you think, Gene, that they changed the age of the missionary, the sister missionaries and the elders? Why did they make that drastic down to 18 years old change?
Well, it was supposed that maybe they did it because of this announcement of Wade Christofferson, but also that's a way to indoctrinate more of the young women. It's a way to improve the numbers of missionaries going out in the fields. It's a way for them to sort of jimmy the numbers to make it look good for them somehow.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they know that getting young people out on a mission earlier is the best way to continue to indoctrinate them. And when the age was 19, there were a lot of people who would go to their first year of college before they would serve a mission, and some of them would get distracted and never serve. So I think, it's basically socially mandatory for young men to go on a mission. If they make sure these guys are doing it right out of high school before they have a chance to get distracted with sports in college, it's going to be more likely that they'll stay in the church.
And career,
Right.
Okay, so you want to move along to another story I have, or do you have something?
Yes, please. Go right ahead.
So a very interesting thing was that in the middle of the year, the church admitted in a way by just letting a document appear in its archives, and that was the revelation on polygamy. And the whole idea of the revelation on polygamy allowed, it was John Taylor's revelation, and it was the core of why fundamentalist Mormon organizations popped up. It was why Warren Jeffs did what he did. And the church had said for years that, no, that's not a real thing. And yet now it's here. And I remember some apostles saying, we've never hid anything since the beginning of time, or something like that, since he knows the integrity of the Mormon leaders. And so I'm not so sure about the integrity there. But interestingly, early in the year, what else happened, Megan?
Well, late in 2024, the LDS Church released a new cartoon as a way of teaching the principle of polygamy to children. And the gist of the cartoon was that Joseph Smith was told by God to practice polygamy. Joseph Smith didn't want to do it. And, yet he went ahead with it, even though it was a really difficult thing to do because it was what God wanted. But the way that they presented it really was grooming. And the LDS Church was called out not only by ex-members, but by current faithful members about how harmful this cartoon was. And if I say, if I had to hazard a guess, I would say that this was actually kind of the beginning of the end for Michelle Stone. This was the first time that she really pushed back hard against the church about teaching polygamy. So what ended up happening is that the church got so much flack and pushback for this horribly harmful cartoon that was basically grooming kids, that the church actually changed the wording in the cartoon. They removed some of the more problematic things. And so early in this year, in January of this year, they released the new cartoon panel that would teach children about polygamy.
That's something you might cover on Mormon Snark someday.
Yes, we definitely will.
And it makes me wonder that they knew that the Taylor revelation was in existence, but they hadn't yet posted it to their archives online. Makes me wonder if this was in cahoots.
Well, my speculation Yeah, my speculation, Gene, is that it was a very sneaky way of trying to do a polygamy cartoon, teaching it to the kids, and having the kids say, "Guess what we learned about in primary today?" So that the parents, would give less pushback. Because if you had introduced that revelation just to the parents right away, there probably would have been a lot of pushback of like, "Hey, is this real?" But by coming out with the cartoon first, it's sort of like they reverse engineered the learning process so that the kids could be the ones to break the news to the parents. But it backfired big time, because not only did they get horrible pushback on this terrible cartoon, but then once they did release the revelation as well, there were a lot of faithful members who kind of went crazy over that and said, no, it has to be fake. That's not real. And there are still a lot of polygamy deniers out there, some of whom have been excommunicated.
Or monogamy affirmers.
Right. Monogamy affirmers.
That's right. Randy and I recently interviewed one monogamy affirmer who was excommunicated, not for having the belief, but for being basically a woman and talking out against what the church's current storyline is. And that's what we'll say, current. It's always current. You just never know.
Right, because it definitely changes over time.
I have to say there's a lot of interest in that too, based on the interview that we did, Gene, and the numbers of people that tuned into that. And with the shorts, that really is a hot topic still in the church today. Speaking of hot topics, there are another thing that I've noticed in 2025 is that the post-Mormon, or I should, how would I say it? The questionable Mormon practices are brought to light through social media, television shows, docuseries, and it's become very common to see these shows. Who, for instance, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. People are getting a glimpse of how real are these people. And then we get I Survived the Mormon Church with old gal, what's her name? The Salt Lake
Heather Gay.
Yes, Heather Gay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bad Mormon.
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. There's one on Dancing with the Stars, two of them on Dancing with the Stars. One of them went pretty far, and now, because of that, has a show on that she's been given on Broadway. She'll be working on Broadway. All these TV shows are kind of intriguing to people because they're like, what is Mormonism all about? I'm starting to hear a lot of controversy, and I'm glad to see that some of the true stories are out there being told.
Yeah.
And of course, the members are instructed to stay the hell away from that. Don't watch it.
Right.
It's right from Satan, right out of hell.
Yes, having Mormonism in the news is a double-edged sword, right? Because it could get people thinking about polygamy, or it could garner interest in, hey, I want to be just like those influencers, right?
Yeah, I mean, a publicist will tell you that all publicity is good publicity, but I would argue that a lot of this publicity that the church is receiving is causing people to leave, and at the very least causing them to question and then eventually leave. At best, it's causing them to leave.
There was a little snafu news article in the middle of the year talking about whether the church is paying people. Some people say, oh, well, it's a marketing firm that's paying the influencers to mention Mormony things. But then it's like, where does a marketing company get its money from? Oh, the church.
Yeah. It's funded by a corporation that's funded by a corporation that's funded by the church.
Yeah. And so yes, that's all part of what I'm calling the Mormon millennium instead of the Mormon moment. Everything's Mormon for the last dozen years, and I can't see it ever stopping. even from the recent videos, the recent movies. A year ago it was Heretic, and also at the beginning of the year was the American Primeval, and other documentaries or other types of media has been showing Mormonism, and the public can't get enough.
The non-member public can't get enough. The members are, they put their iron wall up and nothing can penetrate it because the prophet said that it's bunk, so it's bunk. We're not even going to listen. We're not going to open our brains. I have a little issue with that.
I don't remember the Sunday school lesson on critical thinking.
Right.
Didn't happen.
I mean, that's why we
There
have
has not been
brains, and
one.
that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, did we hit 10 stories? I lost count there.
We're closing in. If anybody has wants to put some of their stories in the chat that you think may have been missed, and it does seem like there was one other one. Let me see if I can see it. Let's see.
There was, there's been some tragic stories like the Michigan church, and in Africa, there was a bus that was in an accident and killed 13 young
Right. That was
members
big.
of the church. Yeah, that was very big. And I don't think the response was adequate that the first presidency gave. I think that they sent, I don't know, I can't remember who it was they sent over, but once again, let's just keep things quiet. Let's not advertise anything with a negative flair to it.
They sent the Relief Society president and the primary president, I think, with some books of Mormon that they gave out.
Yeah, and they probably prayed for him too, like the floods.
Yes,
and you're aware of that, and that was 25, Randy, right?
It was this year. Yeah, it happened on the 4th of July this year. And I asked for Randy's help in trying to get in touch with the local Relief Society presidency there so that I could go help the Mormons in their volunteer effort, because the LDS Church is generally known for helping out during disaster relief. We always used to see the yellow shirts with the Mormon helping hands on there. And I remember during several of the hurricanes that they would, muster groups of people to drive to Houston and go help cut up tree limbs and things like that. But there was none of that during the Texas floods this year. And not only that, but I tried in vain to get in touch with the Relief Society president. We missed each other several times, but ultimately the ball was in her court and she did not get back to me about helping and volunteering. But I was able to connect with a different church there in Kerrville and, saw how much good they were doing. They had set up an entire store in the annex part of their church where people who were in need could come and literally get whatever they needed, everything from diapers to, baby formula to water to food to clothing, whatever they needed. And the newspaper articles that I read that were released by the LDS Church indicated that the only effort that the LDS Church was really putting forth was volunteering and helping with their own members in their own community, not really doing anything out there in the broader community to help people, but helping their own members. And that was pretty much it.
Well, they did pray for the victims.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So, ooh.
And we also had a little discussion about, there were some people who were praying for rain that week. And so, God answered their prayers, but didn't answer the prayers of the people who were praying for protection during the flood. So that's a little confusing to try and figure out.
It's very confusing.
I guess there was a recent flood in Arizona, and something's happening in the news.
There's yeah.
And Megan,
that's a whole political thing right there.
Did you want to talk, Megan, about that immigration story?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a little bit interesting. amidst all of the controversy in the country over immigration reform and people being deported from the country, I guess that's something that the LDS Church felt like they had to comment on. Although there's so much that they decide not to comment on, it's always interesting to see what they do choose to do. And this, of course, they did a big press release saying that they were going to stress love and, love for people and following the laws of the land and keeping families together. So their news release basically said obedience to the law, loving all God's children, providing basic food and clothing as our capacity allows to those in need, regardless of their immigration status, and then keeping families together. But I don't know, Gene and Randy, do you think that the church provides basic food and clothing to those in need?
I do not.
Haven't seen it.
And especially, if they were a church that did that all the time and that's where their money went, I feel like it would be so much more of a Christian church. But with the $300 billion or roughly that amount set off to the side for a rainy day, there should be a hell of a lot more kids receiving clothes and food and help.
Right.
And I don't mean to just the members either. I mean to these communities that need help. If you want to be a church of Christ, act like Christ. If you want to be a church of the Wells Fargo Bank, then act like a bank.
Yeah, I also want to point out that part of this press release that they put out encouraged bishops and other local lay leaders to consult with the faith's attorneys on how to deal with immigrants lacking permanent legal status in their congregations. And I don't know if you guys know this or not. Did you know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has an Office of General Counsel? I know that it just means that, we know that the church has been run by attorneys for a long time, but there's an official office in the church called the Office of General Counsel. These are the attorneys that advise the leaders on how to act in these certain situations.
Well, they got rid of the patriarch, this general patriarch, so they needed they cleared out his office and they needed something to be put there, I guess.
Right.
So they fired God, they fired Christ, and hired attorneys to tell them how to run it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That explains a lot. Hell, they even hired an attorney to run the church.
Yes, exactly. Now we have the prophet, seer, and litigator. Trademark. I'm trademarking that one right now.
That's a good one. That'd go good in your merch store. Prophet, seer,
that's right.
Litigator.
What is it people say about Jesus? My something was a carpenter.
My brother?
Like my savior was a carpenter, or whatever
something
they
like
say.
that.
Just think if Jesus was a lawyer, how that would sound. My savior was a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's just funny.
Yeah, I always like to think of that talk where they told us, if there's something we disagree with, if there's a policy that we disagree with the church, instead of saying, I disagree with the church's policy on this, they encouraged us to say, this is the Savior's church, so you should say, I disagree with Jesus's policy. And so I'm just going to add Mormon Jesus to that, because I disagree with Mormon Jesus's policy on handling SA in the church. I disagree with Mormon Jesus's policy on handling LGBTQ issues in the church. I disagree with a lot that Mormon Jesus has to say.
Maybe he was a lawyer. You just never know.
That's not really what the Bible tells us about him, but it could be wrong.
So in preparation for our show, Randy asked chatgpt to come up with 10 top news stories. And I think chatgpt was kind of interested in the church's news outlets. because they had like number 4 record seminary and institute enrollment. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think any legitimate other alternative media put that out. Like it wasn't going to be on Fox News. It wasn't going to be in the New York Times. Oh yeah, the Mormon Church enrolled more people in seminary institute than ever before.
It's always interesting, Randy. I'm really interested to know what prompt you put into ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is going to spit out whatever you put into it. So just like when you're advertising to hire somebody, you're going to get the applicants that you advertise for. That's the way ChatGPT works. So I will tell you, I did a similar search, except the prompt that I put in was, what are the top 10 controversial stories involving the LDS Church?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Randy,
yeah, I didn't do that.
Randy's was top 10 news stories of the LDS Church in 2025.
Yep. You have to let ChatGPT or whatever large language model you're using, you have to let them know what your mindset is going into it, because otherwise they're going to assume the faithful response. I once had a little search history with, I believe it's Grok AI, regarding, the missionary age change. And it was giving me a lot of really apologetic answers. And so I had to tell it, now assume that I'm a former member, and I think the age change is trying to get them to indoctrinate more kids. And then they were like, well, yeah, that is kind of suspicious. So you do have to be careful what you put in there as a prompt.
Another of the prompts of the top stories said, Light the World 2025. Sure, it was a big
campaign,
PR campaign, but I don't know if it was very much news. Continued temple activity and global expansion. So the Church News put out, that there was 9 dedications and 20 construction starts and 16 new temples announced last year. But those things aren't really on national news outlets, or like we say, any other non-Mormon news doesn't really care about those things. And then changes to the general conference format. The fact that they're discontinuing Saturday evening sessions. Just think if you heard that the Scientology for their annual convention wasn't going to have the 5:00 presentation. Who would care?
Right.
About that?
I mean, who wants to go to church on Saturday night anyway?
That's right.
It's a waste of a perfectly good Saturday night.
Yeah,
I love this one.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites.
And I say unto you, tithe the poor, create shell companies, and invest billions into stocks. Just kidding. That's evil.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So there you go. Top 10, or however many we listed.
We'll have to ask David Letterman. Okay, David Letterman always did the top 10 on his show.
Yeah, I used to love David Letterman's top 10, to be honest with you.
I did too.
He's one of my favorites.
Big countdown. Yeah. We should do a top 10 David Letterman style. Like 10.
Yeah, I wish I had time to put together such a great graphics presentation, but I really don't.
Gene Evan says hi.
Yep. I say hi.
Evan,
back.
Gene says hi back.
Thank you for that gripping news story, Randy. Hey, young Black economist, good to see you. Well, guys, maybe we could wrap up the show by having a little bit of a prediction of what is going to happen in 2026. I don't have a hat or a rock anywhere nearby, but I'm going to just use my powers of, intuition. Oh, you've got your hat, Gene. Where's your rock?
That's his thinking cap.
I don't know. Will toothpaste do for substitute?
I don't know. I do have a pretty shell that I could use.
That's a great prediction, by the way. I mean, a great idea for the predictions. And I'm going to start it off by saying the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, gone. The Church of Jesus Christ, in.
Wait, we have to go back. Gene, when you were showing your news report, it already happened. Can you go back to your news report? The one that you shared just before you shared the that little reel with us?
That's how good my predictions are, is I predict them, they already have happened.
They already happened. Great to see you, Keith and Angela. I hope England is treating you well.
So I showed something. Let's see. Was it directly from the news? I mean, the church?
It was a news article that you shared.
Yeah, you'd have to say which one it was.
So it actually came out and stated that they're dropping the last half?
No, there just was a little byline. Shoot. It was the one that we
polygamy cartoons?
No. It was the one that we did right before the immigration one, I believe.
Influencer marketing?
Yes, maybe it was that one.
Because I've got to tell you, I hate having to write out the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when I'm doing stuff on videos.
It wasn't that one. Because there was another little article right off to the side.
Megan, I think you just made this up for attention.
I really didn't. I saw it and I meant to mention it, and then I got excited talking about something else.
So describe what the article on the side said.
It said Church of Jesus Christ announces, and I can't remember what they announced, but I just noticed that they didn't have the of Latter-day Saints in there.
Oh, on all of their folders and pamphlets and things, it's just now the Church of Jesus Christ.
You see it there?
Yeah, it's already churchofjesuschrist.org. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Look to the right of that polygamy revelation. It says LDS Daily Watch List, Church of Jesus Christ releases 2025 year in review. So this is this is not the church's newsroom, but this is a news, report. And they're obviously following, well, I shouldn't say obviously. I suspect that they're following guidelines from the LDS Church to say just Church of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it says this is from the ldsdaily.com, whatever that is. So it does say Church of Jesus Christ releases.
Yep.
Year in review. I wonder what that is. Okay, we could just run this. We'll just scroll through this. What do they say the highlights are?
Milestones.
Christmas movies.
This is crazy.
That is hilarious. But anyway, that was that.
I guess you have to click on the video to get their breakdown. But yeah, so I guess my prediction for 2026 in the LDS Church is that we are going to see some more breadcrumbs for women in the church getting some kind of power or leadership. And I also think it's possible.
Handing out programs.
They already hand out programs. They're greeters and whatever. I think we'll probably get some more of that, but I also think that we're going to see some changes. I think that the young men are going to get more and more priesthood responsibilities younger and younger. That's my biggest prediction for this year.
I'm sorry, did you say young men or young
I said
women?
I think young men are going to get more priesthood responsibility at a younger age.
Like before deacon age?
Well, I think that they're going to start having the deacons. Well, they already are doing deacons at a younger age. They're coming in at 11 now instead of 12, or the the year of their 12th birthday. I think we're going to start seeing teachers getting priest responsibilities, priests getting elder responsibilities, and more men getting the Melchizedek priesthood sooner, in order to sort of ratchet up the indoctrination and the responsibility earlier.
What is it? The priesthood of Aaron is the deacons and teachers, right?
Yep,
Is there two?
the Aaronic priesthood.
So they can merge those and make the young men priests at 14 and then elders at 16 or 17.
Yep, let 14-year-old boys start doing baptisms.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't count for anything. Might as well let them.
Why not?
Swimming.
Right.
My goodness.
Yeah, I was going to say that women will get to pass the sacrament, so I'm going to have to think of something more than that.
More controversial than that.
Yeah. I wonder
Gay
if
marriage in the temple.
Yeah,
That ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to happen.
That's right.
I'm going to speak it into existence.
I'll tell you what will happen, Megan, is that we're going to lose another apostle in 2026. Yeah.
I think that's probably true. We've got.
And I'm going to predict we're going
some
to
that are
gain
up
2 apostles in 2026. How about that?
there.
Because
Well, we're going to have to.
Last week. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting my revelation straight from God. And, you guys are speculating, but I just had a revelation. I can't tell you which apostle it is yet, for it has not yet been revealed to me.
I do not know it. It has not yet been revealed.
Can you tell me
for
who
this
it is?
purpose, I have come to inquire of Randy at the Veil.
I can tell you through the veil upon the 5 points of fellowship, if you'd like.
5 points of virtual fellowship.
Right.
So, yeah.
I thought it was interesting that you interviewed, you and Kiki, I think, did a show on John Malekamakahumana, whatever his last name is.
Smith? Just kidding.
The 33rd degree Mason. That talked about.
I will say, I know that guy's a problematic guy. I know that a lot of what he has said has been debunked as cuckoo nutty BS, which is exactly why the first time that I saw that little TikTok reel, what he was claiming that the temple rituals had roots in Satanism, I wanted to make sure that I did my research and my due diligence. I looked it up, and I couldn't necessarily find direct ties to Satanism. There was one source that claimed that last piece of learning in the temple is also part of the Black Mass in Satanism. But I did come across a blog post from a Wiccan community that claimed that same verbiage that we use in the temple is used in Wiccan ceremonies as well. So that was a really interesting piece of information that I had not considered before.
I rarely thought of my loins and sinews except for being at the Veil.
Well, the interesting thing about this Wiccan blog that, was talking about that is, if you really think about it, everything in the temple is supposed to point to Jesus. It's supposed to be, more learning about the Savior, getting closer to the Savior. But that last part of learning that you get in the temple has nothing to do with Jesus at all. It's all about earth and body and carnality, has nothing to do with Jesus.
For what it's worth, I think about your loins and sinews all the time, Gene.
Yeah, there you go. So the Mormon atheist says definitely not Satanism. And I'm going to say this about the Mormon atheist. He has done a lot of work on reading books around what's the temple that's big in Israel? Solomon's temple. So Solomon's magic, the Solomon magic,
Solomonic, is it
Solomonic
Solomonic
magic,
magic? Yeah.
right? And his channel talks about how the Solomonic magic has been part of Freemasonry, and that Freemasonry was like trying to make a church, and that's what the anti-Masons were against. And then it sort of evolved into the Mormon Church. It's like the Mormon Church kind of like caught that disease. And he is definitely onto something, right? And it's stuff that you just don't salami magic. Makes me hungry for a sandwich actually right now. And so I recommend people go to his channel and look at his videos. Now, he's a guy, right? He's not a scholar. He knows how to jump in the water and stay under for like 90 minutes at a time. What do we call that? It's not skydiving. It's not water diving.
Free diving.
Yeah, he does diving with the gear and stuff, and
scuba diving
and other things, right?
There we go.
I thought that was too easy and too obvious, so I didn't say scuba diving. I thought there was some fancy.
So
surely Gene would know the name of a scuba diving.
And I'm going to say right now, just so that even more people watch The Mormon Atheist, he made his first ever appearance on Ladder Daily Digest. He was in the chat in some show and said, "Hey, I want to start like a little like group of people chatting about some things." And so I got a hold of him and I said, instead of starting a group, let's just do podcasts. And so he started off about how a book he was reading was so similar to the Book of Mormon. Oh, the Bible. He read the Bible and the Book of Mormon. He talked about the similarities. And it was, like I say, he's not a professional speaker, but the things that he's come up with are pretty amazing. And then Randy and I interviewed him about a year later to see how things were going. And, there's something to it. There was a lady that wrote a book about Joseph Smith's family being engaged in counterfeiting. And I would tell people, like, she connects dots that are really far apart from each other, not exactly sure about the connection, but the dots are amazing. And it was about like Dartmouth and other things. There are things that I've heard every now and then in church history, but there's 100 dots around everything we've ever heard in a church Sunday school history lesson that are really interesting. And so I do recommend that people go to the Mormon Atheist and listen to what he has to say. He mainly says, read the book. He says that 100 times, read the book. I'm just telling you what the book is, but in order to understand, you have to read the book. And so,
yeah, Ganesh Cherian and I actually had a conversation about the fact that Joseph Smith's brothers attended Dartmouth, and it would have been seen as their responsibility, since they were a poor family and couldn't send everyone to college. It would have been their responsibility to come back home and share that information with his family.
I want to jump back real quick to the satanic rituals and things that you were just talking about, Megan. The Mormon Atheist says definitely not satanic, but we know that there's roots from the occult and folk magic. Rob, when we interviewed Rob Tobler about that, he was very knowledgeable about the folk magic and the occult. So, satanic, maybe not, I don't know, but there are a lot of occult symbolism right there on the Salt Lake Temple, as well as other well-known church spots. And there's been several videos made about that. So whatever their roots are, whatever the origin is, it's not good. It's not like God came down and says, here's the wonderful blessings I'm going to bestow upon you. It's like steal a little from the occult. That'll keep them on their toes.
And so, Megan, did you do a show already about that? The guy that Randy was talking about it, where he couldn't pronounce
Yeah.
his
So when Kirsten and I did our final, well, maybe not final, but we did our episode about the veil of the temple. We played that short TikTok, and I read an excerpt from the blog that I was talking about, that talked about that last piece of learning being very similar, apart from one word, to a Wiccan ceremony. And that same website, actually, well, not the same website. It was a different website that had 3 panels comparing the Black Mass and Satanism with the Masonic ritual, and then comparing that with the Mormon temple ritual as well. And we showed that, and I have that website. The address for both of those websites are in the show notes of that veil episode that I did with Kirsten.
I don't understand what you mean by that last piece of information.
You know, when you go up to the veil and they say, we can't tell you the name yet. You have to go up to the veil to get the name. And so then you get the name, and then you get to go into the celestial room.
Is that the strength in the navel, marrow in the bones? That goes way up before the LDS Church.
100%.
Yeah, you look that up, and it's once again, it's occult roots, all word for word, and in the Masons, the secret name that you're talking about.
That's right.
Health in the navel, marrow in the bones. Yeah.
And here's what I'll say too, is that there's things come in waves and patterns and get reinvented and stuff all throughout time. And, stuff that they thought about 500 years ago maybe came back during the 1800s and then is coming back now, but with everybody's new twist on it, it's almost like it's the philosophies of men mingled with not scripture, but old teachings or something, right? And so anyway, and so there's history goes back longer, right, than we think usually. Like, what's underneath the pyramid? What were they trying to hide under the Great Pyramid in Giza, right? That was we have to hide this evidence. So let's put 4 million tons of blocks on it, right? So anyway, that's like
they'll never figure out where it is.
How are they going to know? They're never going to know.
Right. They're never going to know.
Yeah. But anyway,
they'll know.
But there was something going on, right? A lot of times it always bugs me in history, civilization starts here. It's like, just like we're learning now, civilization has been for tens of thousands of years getting a little bit more intricate. And the Göbekli Tepe things and the Stonehenge, all those things had, before they were there, had the humans dealing with each other. And so anyhow, I don't think we're going to do an after show. What do you think? Or do you want to do an after show?
Well, I mean, I'm always game for one, but you are with family, Gene, so we should defer to you and let you go enjoy your family.
Well, I'll put the link in if people want to join the after show. I don't know how long until they drag me away till we're going to go to some restaurant in about a half hour. But anyhow, thanks everybody for watching. Unless there's anything else, Randy, do you have anything on Momo Nomo that's going to be everybody shouldn't miss?
Yeah, we've got a couple of good videos coming up on the show. They're actually just me talking about a few subjects that are near and dear to my heart, and then I've got the new TikTok channel, which is under the same name, Momo Nomo 82. And I'm putting, trying to put a few things up there too, to direct people from one to another. I have an old account on TikTok, Randy Knows Grief, and I have like 3,000 or 4,000 followers. But when you get a brand new channel, it's like it takes a while to accumulate the members. So head over to TikTok, check out MomoNomo82, and see if you like some of that stuff. You'll see a lot of Megan and a lot of Gene on there.
Maybe you can change it to Randy Knows More Than Grief.
Exactly.
Anyway, everybody, share, like, and subscribe. Do the things on Latter-day Daily Digest. I probably invited like 100 people to be on shows that they say okay, and then I say okay, give me a time and a date, and then I don't hear from them, and then it's out of sight, out of mind, and I'm on to inviting other people. So we'll see what happens for 2026. All right, everybody. There's only 3 more days left. Less than 3 days, right? 29, 30, 30, a little bit less than 4 days. And then it's going to be 2026.